afternoon and welcome to Afternoon Tea from Bookends. My name's Gerald.
And I'm Anita.
And what are we talking about today, Anita?
I thought we were going to talk about NaNoWriMo.
Not NaNoWriMo.
Well, we're not just going to talk about NaNoWriMo, we're going to talk about why would you want to do it? What was the point?
Yes, and rebels, and how you can sort of bend the rules a bit.
How you can bend the rules, and most importantly, I feel with Nano, is how you can make it work for you. What is it that you want from it that you can use to make it work for you?
Yes. Right, I'm looking at these cakes. I've got to have one of these.
Talking of NaNoWriMo, I think I said once before that the thing about Nano is you're counting words, and in this case I just find myself counting all the time. So counting words. Do you know how many calories are on this plate? 300. There's 1,340 calories on a plate just there in those cakes. I know.
So
you end up counting calories, you count steps, you end up counting your life away. And I think that if you're counting, then you're not focusing on the real purpose of why you're doing it. That's what I think. I'm going to have one of these because there's more calories in these.
Bailey's cake.
Okay, you first.
Me first. For those who are not aware, NaNoWriMo is an international challenge, takes place during November each year, and the idea, the challenge, the whole thing about it is to write 50,000 words of a novel in a month.
In the month of November.
In the month of November, I already said November.
Did we?
Yeah, I did.
Okay. I wasn't listening, I was eating cake.
Yes.
And counting the calories.
Yes, obviously you can't do two things at once. My experience of NaNoWriMo is that I've done it 16 times, won it 15 times. And what I've ended up with each time is 50,000 words of not a novel.
Right.
Because it's not, I sort of look, and part of the reason that I have so many works in progress is that I get to the end of NaNoWriMo, look at what I've written and think that's not a novel.
No.
And that's a lot of work.
No.
So the problem with NaNoWriMo is that what you produce generally has to have a lot of work put into it afterwards.
I think that's true, and I think that the reason I did NaNoWriMo originally was because I needed something which held me accountable for actually writing the book I'd always said I was going to write. And I needed to be held accountable. And the benefit of it for me was writing something every day. And I think when I work with people to mentor writers, one of the key things I say is write every day, and eventually you will get a book out of it. You'll get words on paper. It might not be a book, but you will get words on paper. As you say, the downside of that is you can just write any old words that don't really mean very much. But the other thing for me was the daily writing habit. It was also the notion of setting achievable targets. I think that's important, that you have a daily target and you have to do that every day. You're committed to it because you're committed to other people, and you're kind of held accountable to it, to yourself mostly. But, you're on the website with all those other people and you want to make sure you do what you've said you're going to do. So that was the value. But I agree with you that I ended up with 50,000 words of a story which wasn't quite a story, but by the time I'd finished it, I'd worked out what the story was or should be. And I'd identified who my characters were, and then I could start writing the novel. Yeah,
that's the thing. And so of the many novels I've written during NaNoWriMo, I am now going through them, selecting them, replotting them, rewriting them. But in essence, the story's still the same.
Okay.
So what I've used NaNoWriMo for is to tell myself the story, to play out the story, see if the beginning, middle, and end works. See if there's like the basis of a story there. But the thing about NaNoWriMo is that you don't necessarily have to write 50,000 words of a brand new novel. And there is this category called the Rebel.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
So you still participate in NaNoWriMo. You still enjoy the interaction with others and the general cheerleading, but you have alternative targets. Mm-hmm. So, for instance, one year I wrote 2 novellas of 25,000 words each.
Okay. Rebel.
I'm a rebel. One of our friends is going to be writing a blog post for each day of NaNoWriMo, which she's going to then schedule them to support the launch of her book in the new year.
So can I ask a question about that then, about being a rebel and about the way NaNoWriMo works? Because if you say she's going to be writing a blog post, she's not actually doing nano.
No.
Because National Novel Writing Month is, as it says in the title, it's writing a novel.
Yeah.
So she's harnessing what NaNoWriMo offers. Is she using the website and joining in all the debates and discussions? Because for me, that was one of the benefits of doing Nano, was being joined with people all over the world, really, who were doing the same challenge. And just to clarify as well, one thing that put me off to start with was I thought I had to put up the words I was writing every day.
Okay.
You don't have to do that, do you? No. You just have to put your word count of what you've done. So, in effect, you're only really accountable to yourself. And you can cheat and you can say you've done whatever you want to do, but then you're only cheating yourself. So
yeah, and when you get to the end of the month, when you do have to upload the words you've written, NaNoWriMo organisation doesn't check those words, doesn't it?
No.
And I've known people, not friends of course, but I've known people who've just had the same word repeated 50,000 times.
Wow. Well, that's pointless.
It is pointless.
So it comes back to what we were saying at the start. Why would you personally, why would anyone want to do it? And what are your targets and what do you want to get out of it? And I think if you identify that and then harness this process, which is the, setting yourself targets, being accountable for those targets, being motivated to write something every day, then I think it can work really well for you. And because of the framework, because there's this global online platform that you're sharing.
Yeah. And I think that's the key thing, is that there is a global push towards this. It's a group of writers. It's a lot of the time it's new authors who've never written a novel before. So they want to join in with something that helps them, because writing, as we know, writing is a fairly solitary practice.
Yes, it is.
For most people.
Yeah.
And so NaNoWriMo gives them that encouragement, that support. The rah-rah, you can do it if that appeals to you. It doesn't appeal to me. But there's a lot of support. And if you get to the end and you've achieved your target, and nominally, if you have 50,000 new words, you can upload those. You get access to some goodies.
Is that what they mean by winning?
That's what they mean by winning.
Winning. So you don't actually win a prize.
You don't win a prize.
What does winning Nano mean then?
Winning Nano means that you've achieved your target, and what you've done is achieved the target that they've set for you.
Okay.
And by doing that, and by having 50,000 words that you can upload, it unlocks access to money off vouchers, money off codes for pieces of writing software and things like that. It's, again, nobody checks those words. So if you feel you have completed the challenge, whatever that challenge is, as long as you have 50,000 words somewhere, you can upload them and get access to the goodies. So, but it's all about your own targets and what you want to achieve, and because it gives people a bit of impetus, a bit of encouragement, because it's something different, something special.
It's also, for some people, and for me this used to be the case, I did it a few times, but then I kind of eased off because it didn't quite fit with what I was doing. And for me, it was like an annual focus. So I knew that in November I was going to be writing a book, a new piece of work. And therefore, the time leading up to that, I had to get the idea developed, I had to plot it, I had to think about it. And Nano also gave me that key thing, which is understanding why planning and plotting are so important. It's what we talked about last time, wasn't it?
Yeah.
That I know there are people who go into it and just start with an idea and write it. And that's great. And they will work out some sort of idea and they might well write 50,000 words. But if you actually want to come out the back end of it with something that looks like it could be a novel, then planning it, I think, is a really good idea. And it gave me that, it made me understand that, because, coming out with a jumble of stuff that's not really very much at all, you've then got to go right back to the beginning and rewrite from the start.
Yes, that's true.
So I think that's another thing it gave me, was the focus on planning.
It also gave you me.
Yeah, that's how we met, isn't it?
It is how we met.
Yeah, that's true. Nano Essex, we did. Shall I tell that story, or shall we leave it?
No.
Okay, we'll park that one.
We'll park that one.
We'll park that one.
The lovely people aren't interested. So, in addition, if you accept that you're setting your own targets and you use NaNoWriMo in the way that you want to do it, there are other challenges available. I think there's a write a poem a day thing that goes on. There's something else. I can't remember quite what it's called, but it's about writing a short story a day or a piece of flash fiction a day.
Is that all during the same month?
It's all during the same month. It's not under the auspices of NaNoWriMo, so it's nothing to do. But it's just sort of like a spin-off. And I was instrumental in forming a spin-off group, which was 100k 100 days.
Yes, and
because
I joined that one.
Because a number of people had done NaNoWriMo, found that although it was it was an interesting challenge, it didn't give us what we wanted, which was a novel.
Yes.
So the idea was, and thanks to Sally Quilford, I think, whose idea it was, we cut the daily word count down a bit. So instead of 1,667 words a day, we have 1,000 words a day, which is more achievable.
Yeah, definitely.
And it goes on for 100 days. So at the end of that, hopefully, you've got 100,000 words, which is a better size for a full-length first draft of a manuscript.
I think that was a really good challenge, and that happens in January. And I really...
And July.
January and July. The January one was really good for me, because having written 50,000 words of what I thought was a novel in November, I then realised what it wasn't and how it wasn't a novel.
Yes.
And then the 100k challenge following on in January gave you just enough time between November, gave you December to think it through, and then either start again from the beginning or rewrite from the top. And rewriting was allowed in that challenge. It was a much looser framework.
Yes.
And as you say, 1,000 words a day is quite easily manageable in an hour or so.
And you can include things like blog posts, as long as they're about creative writing.
Yes.
You can include any written discussion apart from Facebook and Twitter posts.
Yes.
But any sort of discussions you have or pieces you write in support of creative writing. So I think that's also a good idea, and it gets you into a habit of writing 1,000 words a day, which is pretty good.
I think that's a good... The targets you can set, though, I think, Nano and 100k aside, setting your own targets, I think, is quite important to make it doable. Setting a time of day when is the best time for you to write and sticking to it.
Yes.
She says, not having done that for a while, but, it's what I preach in my book, Kickstart Your Writing. I wrote this because so many people, and the key things I say in there are get a daily writing habit, get a notebook habit, write every day, and try and find a time in the day when you can, you won't be disturbed and you can just do it. And you can either set a number of words you're going to write every day. I knew someone who was writing a memoir.
Okay.
And she couldn't manage very much, but she did 500 words a day. And in a year, she got her memoir written, and it's now published. We helped her to publish it.
Yes.
And she was very keen that she was going to do 500 words every day, regardless. After lunch, she would sit down and do it. And but setting a time, I like to set an hour in the morning and then just write for an hour. If I can then continue, because I'm not having to go out to work or I'm not going to having to do something else, then that's great during the day. But at least that.
Yes.
And I think that's the key. And you can make up your own rules. You can say every day except my birthday, or every day except your birthday, or every day except Saturdays and Sundays. And the thing about Nano is you can't really take Saturdays and Sundays off unless you make up the word count.
It is difficult, I think, if you miss a day in NaNoWriMo.
Yes.
It's 1,667 words. It's hard to catch up, and I've fallen behind before, and it's a mountain to climb.
It is, and that's the challenge. It's not difficult to do 1,600 words a day, but it is to do it every single day consistently for a whole month.
Yeah.
And I think that's the thing. If you start to fall behind, it gets quite...
Yeah.
And the other thing about it that I think is the downside of it is you can put too much pressure on yourselves, and other people put pressure on you.
Yes.
By shouting on Facebook, woohoo, I did 6,000 words today, look at me, how cool am I? And actually you've had a day from hell and you haven't been able to do anything, and you're feeling bad anyway, and you're beating yourself up. And I think, to say that everyone can write something every day is true. You can always find a little crack of time that you can fit something in. But if your head's not in the right place,
yes,
and if you're emotionally drained, and if you're in a place of extreme fatigue, for example, because people live very complicated lives, don't they?
Do they?
And some people do.
Do they? Okay.
Yeah, they do. And I think that if you're in that place, creativity can't flow from a place of fatigue, and a place of not being particularly well.
Right.
And that's what I feel quite strongly, that don't put too much pressure on other people.
Yeah.
By that, but if you hold on to your own challenge and you hold it close to yourself, and you know what you can do, then I think that's fine.
Okay.
So another thing that's useful for Nano is trying different genres and exploring something that you wouldn't normally do. And I think we've talked about this, haven't we?
Yes.
About writing something, because one year you wrote a crime man's. We were going to try and write it together, but
yes,
I ducked out because I was busy doing other things.
Useless.
But we plotted it together.
Yep, we did.
And crime man's being my romance and your crime.
Yeah. And it's a first draft. It's sitting on my hard disk.
Can I ask you one final question?
One final quick question.
Are you doing Nano this year? And if so, are you ready for it? It's coming up in about a week's time.
Yes, I am doing it because I've written the book. I have to do it every year now.
You've written what book?
NaNoWriMo Meeting the Challenge. There'll be a picture floating around somewhere. And available now from Amazon. And so I have to do it each year. I am as prepared as I normally am. Which, I'm not. I have a plan. I was hoping to get a second plan done if the one that I'm going to write falls a bit short, which is possible. Then I've got the second one to work on. But we'll see how it goes.
When you say falls a bit short, what do you mean?
A bit short on words. So, it's... I don't write long novels. Mine are... Well, they've been up to 70,000, but they're generally sort of mid-50, 55 to 60,000. So they're not epic novels, but they tell a story.
If you've liked this podcast, give us a thumbs up. You can do the next bit.
Can I? You cop out. What a cop out. If you like this, give it a thumbs up. If this is a sort of video that you enjoy, consider subscribing to the channel and tick the notification bell, because YouTube will then send you an email when we have a new video out. And I'm going to be doing other videos during NaNoWriMo. So consider ticking that notification bell.
I think we're done. Thanks for watching. See you next time.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Sync. 3, 2, 1.
Every time.
Every blooming time. So for... Right. My... no, this is rubbish. Having one of those afternoons again.
Yeah, me. Can I say one more thing?
I suppose. It is a strange thing because it's. Oh, now we're talking. Don't need to know this.
No, we don't need to know
Don't
that.
need to know this.
Can I eat the cakes now?
You can eat.
They're very rich, aren't they?
They are very, very rich. Don't be self-effacing, Gerald. That camera isn't quite level. Anyway.
No, it's me that's not level.
I'm not saying a thing.
So, if you've liked this, what's it called?
I don't know.